It's incredible how some people who call themselves fans seem to forget what it truly means to support someone. Jungkook reappeared after a while and looked so good, so full of life and with that warm energy he always transmits, but instead of being happy to see him happy, they started with the same absurd comments about his nose. It's hard to understand what they gain from this. Is there really anything different about him? Because in the eyes of those who truly follow him, he's still the same Jungkook he always was, kind, attentive, with that bright smile and that calm way of being present without needing attention. Many forget that he went through tough times, that he needed rest, and that his return is a cause for joy. We saw him many times after his discharge, laughing, talking, sharing, showing that he was okay. His face can change over time, like anyone's, but his essence remains. Jungkook doesn't need to prove anything because his beauty isn't just about how he looks, but about the way he treats others, about how he dedicates himself to his art without losing his humility. And while some dwell on the superficial, others can see what truly matters, the way he grows, learns, and becomes more authentic. Seeing him smile, you understand that this is true beauty, the kind that can't be measured, manipulated, or changed. It's what you feel when you connect with people. And that's something Jungkook has always had. That's why seeing him dragged down with ridiculous theories is so annoying. Not because it only affects him, but because it shows how little some people understand what it means to admire someone with respect. And that's where Taeyang comes in, too. Because when we talk about Taekook, we're not just talking about two artists, but about two people who accompany each other, who understand each other without words. Many say meaningless things just to drag them down, as if having affection or being close were a problem. But the truth is that Taehyung and Jungkook have proven time and time again that they are human beings before being idols, and that makes them even more admirable. What's most surprising is how they always manage to remain steadfast. Although the fandom sometimes divides or exaggerates, they remain the same, authentic, calm, confident in who they are and what they represent. Taekook has always had that special connection that shows in every glance, in every shared gesture, and that can't be forced or invented. It's something that simply exists. Yesterday, when Jungkook appeared, many felt that warmth that only he can transmit. It was impossible not to smile with him, not to notice how his eyes truly shone. And while some looked for flaws or made up stories, others simply enjoyed him, admiring him for who he is. Because deep down, what Jungkook and Taeyang teach us is that what's important isn't how they look, but how they live, how they remain true to themselves despite everything around them. Perhaps that's what bothers those who don't understand it the most, that despite the criticism, the rumors, or the comparisons, they continue to shine for who they are. They don't need to be perfect, just real. That's why it hurts to see how some people continue trying to define them, pigeonhole them, or decide how they should act. Jungkook and Taeyang aren't the property of the fandom or anyone else. They're two grown men, with dreams, with feelings, who deserve to live in peace without having to bear the expectations of others. Jungkook is live. After so long, we finally saw our bunny again, the most charming and attractive ambassador of Calvin Klein. It felt like the entire fandom had been waiting for this moment with a contained smile. We missed him so much. Seeing him now with that beautiful smile and that warm voice was like breathing fresh air again after a long day. His laugh, that laugh we had grown accustomed to missing, filled the silence again in a way that only he can. There he was, with that expression so characteristic of him, that mix of shyness and mischief that makes him unique. Jungkook looked so good that it was impossible not to look at him and smile without realizing it. It was as if every gesture of his had a special sparkle. When he started eating the chocolate-filled cookies with names on them, you could see how amused he was. He said he opens one every day, but he can't find his own, so he'd just eat it anyway. And when he said it, his reaction was so natural, the entire chat seemed to melt at once. There was something about his way of speaking that made everything feel closer. He didn't need big words, just his voice and that simple way of enjoying what he was doing. When he smiled after saying he'd still eat the cookie, you could tell it wasn't just a transmission, it was as if he was sharing a little piece of his day with everyone. His curiosity, his small expressions, that spontaneous way of being, made every minute seem special. And that laugh, how much we had missed it. Hearing it again was like a small spark that ignites something inside. It didn't take more than that to feel accompanied. That's what many mean when they talk about Taekook as a comfort zone. It's not just admiration, it's that kind of calm that comes when you see them and everything seems simpler. Watching Jungkook laugh, move, speak with such ease, had an almost immediate effect. It was impossible not to smile too. And that shared laughter, even through a screen, had something healing. After the difficult days, the long routines, it was like a little rest for the soul. Jungkook and Taeyang are like that, so full of light, that without knowing it, they become an important part of many people's days. They are that presence that brings joy, that accompanies us without asking for anything. Maybe they don't know it, but for many, they are like small doses of joy that help us keep going. Seeing them, listening to them, feeling the affection they transmit always leaves a feeling of gratitude. Thank you to them for continuing to share their time, for being there, for filling so many hearts with something so simple and so real. Because even in the quietest moments, Jungkook and Taehyung manage to remind us why Taekook is, for many, that safe corner where we always smile again. The most beautiful thing about the bond between Taehyung and Jungkook isn't in a single gesture, but in all those moments that add up without you even realizing it. At first glance, it seems like they're just things that happen, but when you observe them calmly, you notice a pattern. It's no coincidence. They have a way of moving, of looking at each other, and of responding that repeats itself over and over again. As if they already know how to keep up with each other without needing to speak. It's like an invisible routine, made up of small habits that stick, until they become part of them. There's something very natural about that connection. When they're close, everything around them seems to relax. There's no tension or distance. They approach each other with an ease that can't be forced. Sometimes a glance or a smile is enough to understand that they understand each other without saying anything. There's nothing prepared there, just a comfort that's noticeable, a trust that's built over time. And that naturalness is precisely what's most striking. Not because it's something out of the ordinary, but because it feels real. Jungkook has always had a very honest way of connecting with people. He doesn't need to say much. His personality, his laughter, or the way he listens already convey something sincere. That's why when some try to turn that into theories or forced stories, it feels unfair. Not only because it distances him from who he really is, but because it detracts from the simplicity of how he presents himself. Admiring him should be just that, understanding that there's beauty in his unadorned, unexplained personality. And that's where Taehyung fits in effortlessly, because he understands that language too. There's a harmony between them that's noticeable even when they're not doing anything special. Sometimes they're silent, and yet it seems like they're sharing something. They touch each other's shoulders, look for each other with their eyes, or laugh at things only they understand. These gestures are repeated over and over again, not as an act, but as a habit that's already part of their way of being together. It's something that flows so naturally that it becomes difficult not to notice. Many might think they're just moments or fan service, but when you look more closely, it feels different. There's a sincerity in how they treat each other, in how they respect each other. It's not a game, nor a pose. They're two people who accompany each other in a way that needs no explanation. And that, for those of us who follow them, is what makes their relationship special. It's not about imagining things, but about recognizing that what they convey together has a warmth that can't be faked. Ultimately, the most revealing thing isn't what they do when the cameras focus on them, but in those seconds between movements, when they look at each other or wait for each other without thinking. That's when you understand that their connection doesn't depend on external noise, or what others say. It's something that simply exists, and that's what makes it so easy to feel. Every time it's repeated, you notice it again. Not because it changes, but because it remains just as genuine.